Good morning and welcome back to Wishwell Farms. It's going to be a busy day. Plants are getting tall. Gonna have to lower them very soon. But we have another problem we got to deal with first. I came out here this morning and I've already removed this water line right here. This connection right here on this piece of PVC, 3/4 inch PVC, and this water line was leaking really bad. I'm lucky it didn't completely pop apart because the water would have ran full blast all night long. I tried to tighten it and realized for some reason this fitting looks like it's almost stripped out, and that's a brand new fitting. And I've had problems with this one too. So I'm gonna run the Lowe's and get a new piece that's actually not PVC here. Get brass or steel or whatever that slips and connects onto PVC. That way this will never happen again. This is not what I had planned this morning. I have so much to do in the greenhouses today. I'm getting way behind and need to be in there all day. And my oldest son is home from college today because he doesn't have to go back till tomorrow, so he's available to help me. So we're gonna try and get caught up today and knock a bunch of this out. But obviously I have to go to Lowe's first and get this part so I can get my water flowing in my greenhouses. It's gonna be hot and sunny today. We have to have our irrigation system up and running, and it's currently down. So first things first, let's get the Lowe's and find this part, get the water back up and running, and then we're gonna do some sucker pruning. I haven't talked about sucker pruning, the importance of pruning your indeterminate greenhouse tomatoes down to one terminal stem by removing all the suckers. So that's what we're gonna be diving into next as soon as I get home and get this water leak repaired. I do have one good piece of information to share that kind of has to do with what I complained about in my last video regarding finding help for the farm this summer. I think we're in good shape. I don't even think I need any more applications. What's really weird about this year is that they're all girls. One guy, I think I received applications from 10 or 12 girls and a couple ladies, middle-aged ladies. So yeah, that's exactly what I needed. Yeah, I'd like to have a couple guys. They're usually who I put on the sweet corn crew, but at least we got one and a couple returning from last year, so we should be in good shape. But yeah, it's just strange. Last year, it was all guys. I don't think I got one application from a girl last year. And this year, totally the opposite. It makes no sense. No rhyme or reason to it. Oh well, I'm just happy we potentially have some good help lined up to help us this year. We have a chemical delivery. All right, this is all my pesticides for one growing season. And I go through more than this. I probably have a third of it that carries over year after year, left over from the previous year. But yep, this is everything. A lot of it is Roundup and 2,4-D, unfortunately. That's the best way to control weeds, to clean up the fields that are full of weeds for sweet corn. And sweet corn's our biggest acreage crop, about 30 to 35 acres. There are some biopesticides in here, organic type things, but a majority of it is conventional stuff. Even though we do use some organic growing methods on our farm, there are some crops like sweet corn, green beans, pumpkins, for example, that we grow pretty much entirely conventional. And I'm not willing to take the risk of huge losses by trying to keep it organic. So that's kind of my mindset on it. Alrighty, let's get back in the greenhouses. All right, I got that part fixed. Got this little union here that just slid right onto 3/4 inch PVC. So now I got brass to brass threads there connected, and there's no leak, so we should be good to go. And I was able to reuse my same hose. The threads weren't messed up. There was just some rubber or junk in there from the water heater or something. Now we got to fix this one next. I thought this one was good, but I think it's a bad idea to put PVC threads into a hot water heater, brass threads, or whatever that material is. Because I see that there is a wet spot right there dripping. So I'm gonna fix that one later on today too. And then I shouldn't have to worry about it ever again. All right, now that we have that water leak fixed back there, I can get to the job at hand that I was hoping to get started on at 8 a.m. today, and here we are at 10 a.m. But you gotta take care of problems first before you can move on to the next job. So we're in the longhouse today. We have 5 rows, 3 of them are planted, and these 2 get planted next week. The transplants are about 1 foot tall and they are ready to go. So this house holds 1,000. We got 600 over here planted and 400 yet to go later this week. So the job we're doing in here today is pruning the suckers off of the plants. It's only been done one time last week when they started shooting their very first sucker up at the top of the plant. But today we're doing the entire plant. They're only about 2.5 feet tall, but every branch has a sucker on it now. And if we don't get those removed, it's gonna cause some problems. And I'll explain what those problems are here in a little bit and why it's so important to prune these down to one terminal stem. So we're gonna use this very first plant as an example. So indeterminate plants, you only want one main stem all the way up during its entire life. And the only thing you wanna leave coming off the stem are the main branches, these horizontal branches with normal leaves. But at the corner where every branch attaches to the main stalk, it's going to grow a sucker. And it looks like another baby tomato plant. So you can see that right there. We got to pick that off. And they just snap. So there's kind of a natural breaking point that they just snap. It's called an abscission layer. And it will heal itself right there where I snap that sucker off. What we don't want to happen is to snap the sucker off and it not snap all the way, and then it peels up the plant and will open up the stalk a little bit. It's almost like taking bark off a tree, and then you're exposing the plant to potential fungus or pathogens that could, diseases that could attack the plant. So if you look at this plant all the way down here at the bottom, we have a big one here. Look at this monster. You don't ever want your suckers to get that big. I see there's flower clusters up there already. When that happens, you are taking away from the production of the plant and the tomatoes. So we want to get those off before they're any bigger than this, usually about 3 to 5 inches. So there's 2 off already. Here's a third one. 4, 5, 6. Here's a little guy, 7. I usually don't pick them when they're that small. 8. We just picked off 8 suckers off of that one plant. Imagine how bushy and unmanageable that plant would be. There would be branches, new stalks of tomatoes growing in every which direction, hanging down on the ground, and you wouldn't be able to keep it all clipped to the one string. Now, determinates are a little different. You don't take the suckers off. Maybe just a couple suckers or branches right at the base of the plant that are not really helping the plant, like 2 to 4. But normally, determinate tomatoes, like field staking tomatoes don't need sucker pruned. Greenhouse indeterminates are totally different. And many of the tomatoes that you're growing in your gardens, like Big Beef, Better Boy, Early Girl, a lot of the heirloom tomatoes, like Brandywine, Cherokee Purple, all those crazy heirloom old-fashioned type tomatoes, those are all indeterminates and they need suckered. So if you ever had a great big unmanageable plant with like new tomato growth coming off the stalk every which way on the tomato, that is why, because the suckers were allowed to grow into like extra tomato plants right off of the main stem. So that's what we're gonna work on today, is getting all these suckers taken off, and it should have been done last week. It's been sunny and warm and they're really starting to grow now. So another main reason we remove them is because we don't want it to take away from these beautiful tomatoes that are forming here. the plant's going to put a lot of its energy into growing these suckers and not enough energy into growing the tomatoes. So it could affect tomato size and the amount of tomatoes you'll be able to harvest later on further up the plant. So this is how many suckers came off of half of one row. Now I need to mention that it's not like that all season. The first suckering, you have to remove one off of every branch. So that's why there can often be 6 to 10 suckers to remove. So after today, there's only going to be one sucker at the top each week that has to be removed. So if you look on this plant, this one right here, that is going to be the sucker that we remove next week. Now, there's going to be a little one here, it looks like too. But all the rest of the remaining suckers down the plant will have been picked off today, and it will not regrow suckers. It's only going to grow a new sucker at the top of the plant each week as it continues to grow up the string. So just didn't want you to think that there was 6 to 10 suckers to remove each week. It's not like that. But they still grow fast and it can still get out of hand very quickly. This plant is loaded. 1, 2, 3, 4. That little one right there. 5, 6, 7. Sometimes you gotta be careful that you don't actually pick the top of the plant. If you mistakenly top the plant, that plant's done unless another sucker is left to grow to turn into the new top. So you got to be careful sometimes, especially when they're kind of intertwined like this. So there's the top of the plant right there and here, and here's a sucker growing out right here. So having them clipped properly and apart from each other makes it easier to see too. Can you see that big sucker right there? So there's the top of the plant, there's the sucker. Give a little snap each direction and they pop right off, and that little wound right there will heal up. Oh, there, see, I just peeled one. Sometimes it's hard to do when you're holding the camera. That's like peeling bark off a tree. You want to try to avoid that. Also this week we're going to be putting these dripper stakes into the buckets and removing these bamboo stakes. We're kind of behind on that too. All right, all the suckering has been done in this greenhouse, and we also put on a second clip because they were starting to get pretty tall and I was having a few plants falling over. So those 3 rows are good to go for a couple days. And tomorrow we're going to be planting these last 2 rows here in this greenhouse. But right now I got to head down to greenhouse number 1, the tall house. I've got a little bit of J-hooking to do. If you're wondering what J-hooking is, they're also called truss hooks. When the fruit starts getting heavy on the plant, early in the season especially, when it's cloudy, you sometimes get clusters that want to fall. And let me try to find you a good example here. So here's a cluster of tomatoes, starting to get a little weight to them. This is the tomato truss. And sometimes you can see this one's only like 2 inches long. Sometimes they elongate, get a little bit longer, and when the fruit gets really heavy and almost mature, they want to pull down because of gravity, obviously, and it will kink right here. So I got quite a few in this one row right here that are starting to kink. So let me show you how we put these J-hooks on. So if you look closely at this cluster of tomatoes, they should be up here. See how the tomato truss, which is this right here, the stem, has kinked? The weight of the tomatoes has brought it down. And it could pinch off the nutrient flow into these tomatoes and could end up making them smaller or not ripen when they're supposed to. So we want to fix that, and the way we do that is with a little piece of plastic called a J hook or a truss hook. And what's going to do is hang on the string like this, and then we're going to put the J portion right here right onto the tomato truss and lift it into place and then hang it on this string. All right, I'm going to need to set the camera down to demonstrate this properly. So this J hook has 3 options to put the string through. But I have found if you just use the one hook, one of the options, and put it in there, when you're working on a plant and it gets bounced a little bit, it can slide right back down and you lose what you fixed. So what I do is I like to take the center option, get it held into place where I like it, and then I take the string and wrap it around the top option, and then it locks it in. Now it cannot slide, no matter how much the plant is bounced. And now that cluster is fully supported until it's fully mature and harvested. We don't reuse any of these little clips or the J hooks. It would be far too tedious of a task to remove all that. So it all gets drug out of the greenhouse and burnt at the end of the year with the plants after we've terminated them. Now, we don't have to place these J hooks on every cluster. It's normally just the first 2 clusters. And the reason being is that when you have a lot of cloudy days, things elongate. They stretch for the sun, just like the plants elongate and stretch, trying to reach the sun. But when it gets sunny out, they'll put more of their energy into maturing fruit and not elongating the cell elongation within the plant. So, and the same goes true for this tomato truss, this stem. They will tend to get longer and stretch when there's a lot of cloudy days. Now that we're in the spring, today's April 9th, those will not get as long. So maybe by cluster 3, we'll never have to do it again, which is nice because it's a real pain in the butt. But yeah, a lot of the first clusters it has to be done, and it's kind of variety specific. I tend to find it on Torero the most, a little bit on this Ondero variety, which is the first year I've ever grown it, but it doesn't look too bad. This is Geronimo. Geronimo hardly ever has an issue with it. I only had to do like 4 on this entire row. And then normally we have Big Dina, and it's pretty good too, but there was a crop failure last year, so there's no seeds for Big Dina this year. Hopefully next year we'll be strictly into Big Dina and Geronimo. Those are my 2 favorite varieties. I would plant my entire operation into those 2 varieties, hydroponic wise, for the greenhouses. Those are my 2 favorite varieties by far. All right, I'm gonna get the rest of this done and get out of this greenhouse because it's getting hot. Alrighty folks, that's a wrap on today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it and hope to see you again real soon down on the farm.